We'll start with introduction. We have to go over a quick introduction, whether you find it important or not, but it's good to take a look at it. So it was invented in early 90s by a person in Netherlands, and was named after Monty Python. As we mentioned in the introduction, it's an open source programming language. And it fully supports object-oriented programming. So I presume that most of you have done some sort of object-oriented programming. So we'll go over it quickly when we come to that point. Also, it will support also structured programming. It's a very highly extensible language as well. All right. So there is different implementations for Python. The one we use in this class is the C Python, which is like written by C, I think. But there is other implementations that they are presented, and you could use any of them. It's good to try to discover, try to see how they work and what are the differences. But the language is the language anyways. All right. So there is some implementations written with C#, some with Java, etc. So, however, that we are using this implementation. And maybe you know that Python, there's two major versions. There is the 2x and the 3x, and they are not backward or forward compatible. So if you have a code written with 2x, it cannot combine with the 3x, 3.7 or 3.6. They are kind of completely not compatible languages. All right. So currently, the available is the 2.7 for the 2 version, and there's a 3.7 for the 3 version. In this class, we are using the 3.7 or 3.6, any 3s. So you could download and I'll show you what you have to do and what you have to download. All right? So to install the Python, which is coming from python.org, all you have to do is to go to python.org downloads, and you download it and install it. Also, it comes pre-installed for Linux distribution if you are a Linux or Unix person. All right. So when you go to python.org and you hit download, you're gonna come to this page. This is for a little bit older, it's 3.6, but now there's 3.7. Still, you could use 3.6. It's not a big difference. But when you download that, make sure you select that it adds the Python to the path. All right, make sure you do that. Or you could add it manually later. No need, just do this selection and let it run and install. And remember that you're gonna do customized installation. You're gonna customize your installation. And the reason for that, I need you to select for pip. Pip is a program that is used to install packages. Okay, as we'll see later, that we can add packages, import packages, and use them in our programs. You could select all of these, does not hurt, and let it run. All right. So just follow the instructions, and once you're done, you will have it. All right. So that's the simplest IDE program that you're gonna use, and you will use it all the time. I'll show it to you in a second. All right. But there is much more advanced IDEs that they have nicer interface, they could give you better functionality, and you could pick any one of them. So for example, you have PyCharm. I'm sure many of you have used it, PyCharm. Okay, and for that you have to have EDU account. It's a commercial package, but if you have a UB or you have university email address, you could create an account. You could create an account and download it for a free. I think you could have it for a year, and you could renew it every year, as long as you have your email, that academic email. Also Visual Studio, and most of us are familiar maybe with the Visual Studio, and that's what I will use in the class. I'm going to use idle from python.org, and I will use Visual Studio in this class. If you yourself would like to use PyCharm, go ahead. Also, there is a nice package also by Kanobi from InThought. I tried it for a while and it was fun and nice. All right. Also, those of you that try to use Linux, like to use Linux, and they like to use the Notepad or Emacs, still you could use that, but you have to configure them in a certain way that they could combine directly. So again, IDE in the Visual Studio is available. I send you the instructions how to download it. So please make sure that you follow the instructions. So install the SQL Express first, and then the management system, and then you download the Visual Studio, and make sure you select the packages for Python. All right. I'll be using it in the class. I'll be presenting it here. I think it's very common, and most of the students know how to use it. So that's what I will use in this class. Also, this is the link to download the Visual Studio, and there's some documentation how to use it, how to use the IDE. So it's a good idea for the first time to try to go. I'm sure you have used it for C# or C++, but you know, it's a good idea just if you never used it before, so just check a couple of videos how to use it and get yourself familiar with it. PyCharm also is available as long as you have EDU email address. You could download it. They give you a subscription for a year, and you could use it. And I heard it from people use it. It's fun, nice to use, easy to use. I did not work with it that much, you know. Usually a person tries to pick one of the IDEs and you work with it. Once you like the IDE you use, you don't need to keep switching. For those, and I expect none of you, or maybe few of you are like Linux, Unix people who like to use the Notepad++. So there is a certain configuration you have to configure it that you'll be able to combine from the Notepad++. You know, some of us use Notepad for other languages and really loved it and like to keep using it. So we'd like to use it for Python, or, you know, you can, but you have to configure it. I put the instructions for you in here how to configure it if you are interested. I'm not going to go over it because I suspect that maybe one person will be interested. So I don't want to spend time on this, but the instructions in here, and I kept for here the script. This is the script, and it's a zip file in here. You just gotta expand it, and and then it will be configured. All right. About the resources, someone asked me about the textbook. Do we need a textbook for this class? Honestly, I don't think that you need a textbook. For this class, you could, but you don't need it because of the resources. And again, I display, some of the resources we have in here. All right, some of the resources that I found, okay. There is many other resources. As I told you, you'll be surprised how much resources are there for Python, okay, as if it's the only language. As it's, a lot of resources. If you go type in YouTube Python, you'll find so many introductory courses, advanced courses, specialized courses, tutorials. If you have a question, you plug in a question, you'll find a lot of tutorials. So truly, having a book is nice to go through it, okay? It gives you a sequence, but definitely when you need to search for something, the best thing is to use Google, right? So it will give you much more than that. Anyways, so there are lots of resources. Check them once, and then select a few that you can refer to whenever you need them. All right, and also, okay, YouTube has a lot of videos that you could use. So seriously, I mean, there's so much resources for that. There is an interesting application that visualizes the code for you. This is good for people who are introducing themselves to programming, or they are, have doubts about some of the concepts, or they would like to check a certain code, how it works. So let's try it very quickly in here. So. So let's try it for you quickly. So let's go in here. Copy. Actually, it's here, right? So that's the visualize. I put the link for you. So for example, let's write a small code. Let's say, for example, x equals 3, y equals 5, z equals x plus, for example, y. All right. Then we say print. Okay. Total is. Okay, what is the total? Let's say is y, right? That's a simple Python code. So you could visualize it, how it runs, okay? So when you run it, first thing, the 3 will be assigned to a memory location called x forward. So a global variable called xy is created. Then the y is created with 5. Then z equals x plus y, 3 plus 5 equals 8. Then it will print the result, okay, and give you the result with the output as the result. So it will visualize the code for you and shows you exactly how the variables are created in the memory, how the values are replaced. So sometimes it's useful to use it, especially if you have doubt about a concept, or if a program is giving you a hard time and you really don't know what's happening inside the code. So this is one of the tools. Just remember, in the few next slides I will mention few resources that you could use. Okay. Okay. So also there is something called automate the boring stuff with Python. Automate the boring stuff with Python. It comes with a book, okay, online book, and a YouTube channel. The YouTube is like 9 hours or 12 hours, but it's very nice. I mean, it gives you a very nice introduction. So one of the resources I liked myself, okay, you might like it, you might not. I mean, there's a lot of resources. So you could also try it. So let me show it to you. So here. So that's the book, is an online book. And, so you go chapter 0, introduction, Python basics, flow control. Then it talks about functions, lists, dictionaries, manipulating strings, etc., till the end. And it has interesting application at the end. So, for example, working with Excel spreadsheets, working with CSV files, and sending email and text messages, manipulating images, etc., right? So, and with codes. So, for example, if you take a look at lists, for example. So it's explained very well, and it comes with a YouTube, okay, that you could listen to the YouTube channel while you are reading the book.
This is lesson 13, which roughly covers pages 79 to 87 of the Automate the Boring Stuff with Python textbook. So in this lesson, we're going to cover lists. A list is a value that contains values. It contains multiple values in an ordered sequence. The values inside a list are sometimes called items. Typed out as code, a list begins and ends with square brackets, just like a string begins and ends with quotes. The values in the list are separated with commas. That is, the items are comma delimited. So we can have a bunch of string values separated by commas, like cat, bat, rat, and elephant. This is a list value that contains 4 values. You can assign it to a variable just like any other value. So spam equals, I'll just copy and paste this. So when I type spam as an expression, like any other variable, it evaluates to the value inside of it, inside of the variable, which is this list value.
Anyways, you got an idea, so you'll have like a whole instruction about 10 hours with the book. So, I mean, it's good, you know, to try it yourself. If you're a person like you, tired and you want to read, you want to listen, you want to watch. So it depends on the person. Sometimes the best thing is to read and to do things by yourself, right? Again, go back to the other resources we have. So that's one of the resources. Tutorials, there is Real Python Tutorials. That's a great website also, okay? And you're gonna have this presentation, so you don't have to write it now or something. Okay, so let me just show it to you. So Real Python Tutorials, okay, and talks about different applications, okay, primer on Python, and sets of in Python, the ultimate guide to, some one of the applications and dictionaries in Python. So try it out. I mean, you might find it interesting. Again, there are so many resources that sometimes it's not wise to keep jumping from one resource to one resource. Okay, you could take one of the resource and finish it off, and then it depends on how you like to do it. So defining the dictionary. So how you define a dictionary explains it in here. We're gonna cover that in the class anyways, but I'm giving you extra resources that you could follow if you think it's useful for you. All right, with the graphs and all of that. So it's a great resources. A lot of money and time and effort were spent on these resources. Also, you have online ID like Ripple It. Anybody used Ripple It before? No? Okay. This is a very handy tool. You could run a code offline, so Ripple It in here. Of course, you have to create an account. Just to create an account with your UB account. You have to have edu, and then you could use it. So you don't have to have the compiler installed in your machine. You could run it online, right? Any code you would like. So for example, I wrote here, print hello, run, and hello came. Can you see? Yeah. Hello came in here. It's printed in here. So you could write, you could create folders, files, you could do everything online. So if you are in the train going to Manhattan this weekend to enjoy your time, so you could, write codes while you are in, or try things while you are in the cell phone or laptop or whatever it is. So it's a very nice thing also to have, okay? If you have the program installed in your computer, you might need it, but I think it's cool. And by the way, it's also for Java, I think, and different programming languages. So anyways, it's a good thing to get familiar with it. I mean, to know it. So I think it's. Anyways, okay. Moving forward, where we go. So that's one other resource, okay? One of the tutorials is Python programming.net, all right? Python programming.net. I think this will be also very useful. Let me check it out. I forgot which one it was, but control copy, and then go here. So pythonprogramming.com is also has a lot of info. So for example, if you need Python for data sciences, so our data analysis, it has a lot of information about how to write the code and different codes and different applications, robotics, about, for example, here, game development. Python is becoming very famous, much more famous than before in development of games and films. Python, and this is maybe you start in here, Python fundamentals, GUIs, how to create GUIs. So check it out. So there's different packages for creating a GUI application. We're gonna cover this, for example. That's the most simple one in the class, but there is much more sophisticated one like PyQt and Kivai Basics and other ones. So it will be very interesting and very useful to go over that, how to create like codes and it comes with codes and videos. I think it will be very useful to know about these resources. If I were you, what I will do, that's what I do. Look in here. I'm not sure if you're able to see this. So in here, for example, in here, what is it? So, course, I go Python, and I bookmark all the useful resources that I wanted in here. So, so what you could do, create such bookmark as a folder, look at the good resources that you like, and sometimes what I do, I number them. So, most important resource, number 1, 2, 3, it becomes very handy to switch between. And of course, Google will get you to all of them, right? Even if you don't have them, just to try, when you are doing programming, not to stuck in something and try to be as quick as you can to find resources, okay? And actually, you could use them when you're stuck in your project or your program. You could go there, but also you could use them as a learning process. Did everyone do the sign-in sheet? Okay. All right. All right. Also, don't forget the docs coming from python.org. Okay, so it comes with a full, actually it's installed with the application. So if you go, for example, in here, once you install the Python, so I have in this computer Python 3.6 and they have 3.7, and so you see here the docs and the manuals. So it's installed, so you'll have it available for you, and a lot of information. All right. So also, what else we have? We have something called also Python package index. What's a package? Like imports in Java and C. Okay, it's a whole package. So in Python, you don't have to write everything. So there's the packages, third-party packages, and that's what the nice thing about it. It's an open source, right? Open source. So everybody will create packages for certain applications. Deep learning, machine learning, IoT, etc., etc., etc. So a lot of people put a lot of efforts, a lot of packages out there. All you have to import them and read the manual of the package and use it. Look what functions, what class it has, and use it for your application, right? So also you could yourself, if you create a package, your own package, you could upload it there, save it for everybody to use. So this is what it's Python package index. Python package index. Check it out. That's the link for it. Okay. So the PyPy helps you to find and install software developed and shared by Python community. Okay. So that will keep the connection between you and the community. Even if you are early, go there and check what kind of things you could do, what kind of packages are there, right? And if you need to try it out, pip and bring it and see what you can do with it. If somebody's doing a project related, there's a class here called deep learning or machine learning. Maybe there's some package that's useful for your application. Some of you will do senior project for graduation, right? Or a graduation project in his master's or thesis. So they need to use some of the packages for certain application. Check it out. Always the first thing is to check the resources available. I spoke about in thought training. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, you'll love it when you see it. It has a lot of resources, a lot of resources. Let me just show it to you quickly. All right. So for this, you have to have an account, again, IDEO account. I think I have one myself. All right. Excellent. So there is courses that you could use in here. So if you need to use NumPy, we're gonna use it in the class later. SciPy, advanced Python, different classes, courses that you could do, object-oriented programming. So I think it will be very useful. It's very useful for you to know about these resources, right? And try them out. So for example, and it comes with a video and application. Some of them are open. So this is open. Some of them, I think you have to purchase. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's try this one. Are you already subscribed? Yes, I am. I thought I am. You just logged in. Please fill out the field. That's right. Okay, object-oriented programming. So, as you see, not all the videos are open. I'm not sure if you have to purchase it but I remember that I tried some of it before. It was really cool.
I'll walk you through an example that I've developed to show you how we can model a forest fire using object-oriented programming principles in Python. The code that I have here is available for you to download, and you're welcome to look at it and follow along with me. This is a preview of where we're headed throughout the remainder of the course, and we will incrementally build this up step by step in the upcoming lectures. So fundamentally in a forest, the basic thing that we need to look at is that we have a forest, and we need to track the trees and the fires. So I have a forest, and basically what it is I have this array, and if you've been through the NumPy lectures, you'll understand how this is represented on disk. It's not important that you have that understanding to follow along with me. But the basic idea is that I've got this array, and I'm just using a simple Boolean value to represent, is there a tree growing here, or is there not a tree growing here? And the basic function of my forest is to grow trees. And the other thing that is going to happen is in my forest, every once in a while, a tree is going to catch fire. And if the tree is next to another tree, that tree also catches fire. And we build up a model of forest fires, and we can watch what happens as we implement different kinds of behavior in our forest. So I've got a forest. Let me do this right here so you can follow along with me. So if you've downloaded the file, you'll have from simple forest, and you can import capital F forest. Let's just say forest equals forest. So forest is my type. It's a class that I've developed, and forest is going to be an object of that type. And if we look at forest, here's an attribute, and that attribute is a NumPy array of Boolean values. When I make a new forest, I start with an empty forest where no trees growing here. Let's just take a quick look with tab completion what's available here. I've got advance one step, which is my basic method that's going to move this through another growth season. I've got an attribute for the fires, I've got an attribute for the trees, and I also have lookup attributes, and we'll see these later. These are actually properties. I've got a fire fraction and a tree fraction, and that'll tell me what percentage of my plot is occupied by trees. So when we start, the tree fraction is 0, and I can look at the fires and see there are no fires there also. So the basic action that we're doing here is to advance one step. Whether this is a growth season or a day or a year, we haven't determined that yet, but I've advanced one step. And if I just look at the tree fraction, you'll see some trees have grown, and if I wanted to make use of some matplotlib, let's see, I'll use matshow here. And I want to show my trees, and because I'm in a PyLab session, I have a color map. cm.greens, I think, is appropriate. Okay, so now you can see I have a sprinkling of trees at a few places throughout. And if I advance another step and advance.
So you see, a project, an idea, and we go back to what we mentioned in here. Okay, there is the logic, the idea, how you implement it, then the language, and then the tools. Okay, there is the tools. So if you have the three together, you can do so many projects and so many ideas that you could program them. So these are very nice web resources for Python. Again, you don't have to have a homework or a project to do. Just keep going through them. If every night you have time and there is a project presented or a code or ideas presented, just go through the video, watch it. Every time you watch something new, you become a little bit smart. You learn from what others trying to do. So I hope that, okay. So these are just, I mentioned in here I collected some of the resources for you, all right? Take a look at them and see if you find them useful. If they are useful, then you could, subscribe to them. If they are free, subscribe to all of them. Why not, right? So any questions about the resources and about any of these things? No questions? All right. Okay. All right. So we'll start with Python now. Okay. So we'll talk about the basics. The basics will include the statements. What is a statement? Values and data type, variables, operator bitwise, operators, expressions, order of operations, strings, comments, console input, output, block structure. Is there anything new you don't know here? I think it's all terms that you know and you have learned in other languages. So we're going to go quickly over them to refresh your memory, to make you ready. But I'm sure what catches your eyes the most is the block structure. So in Java and C++, C#, we did not have to have. And here, indentation is the most important thing. If you don't indent right, the program will not run. It will give you an error. We'll see example in a second, right? So before I go an example, so I want to show you this. So this is the idle. Okay. So I download idle. You're gonna download it. You have enough instructions for that in here. Okay. And it's interactive. You could do many things interactively. Also, you could create a file. Okay, and you save it. So let's take a simple. Okay, so for the interactive session, you can do whatever. So for example, if you say x equals 5. Okay, so 5 is assigned for x, right? If you say print x, okay, right away it will print it for you. Okay, all right. Also, you could import packages. So, for example, you could say, can you see very well? Is it clear?
Yes. Yeah.
Back, you go in the back. You can see? No, I'm here, I can't see. So, good, if you can see, maybe I have to figure out how to make the font. So please, if there's a problem, let me know. I mean, we'll try to. Okay. All right. So, for example, you could import. So, for example, import sys. What is sys? It's a package. Okay, it's the packager. Okay, import sys. Okay, you could say, for example, import math. What is math? A package, right? Or you could write it, okay, different way. You could say from math import sign or cosine, right? What's the difference? In the first one, you imported the whole package. It might be too heavy on the program, but in the second one, you imported the functions that you need for your program. Okay, cosine, you could say cosine, for example, the certain functions that you will need in your program. Also, you could say from, for example, math or from C math, okay, import asterisk, importing, I think it works, I'm not working here, I don't know why, okay, from C math, import, okay, worked, right? All right, so these are the packages. There is built-in packages come that you could import, you have to import, and you could add the packages to your system with pip. We're gonna learn about that later, right? So, okay, and then you could, create whatever you would like. So you could create a list, for example. So, for example, okay, students, okay, you could create students equals, for example, okay, so male, capital, so male, this is one person, okay, for example, J, okay, second person, Shank, okay, one person, right? So who are these people? Okay, let's call them my GAs. My GAs, right? So I have created a list, right? So if I type my GAs, it will give you the list. So interactive. All right, you could write also loops. So usually, for interactive, for testing things, ideas, something is very nice to keep it handy, right? And in front of you. All right. So always keep when you study Python, always keep both. But usually, when you write a code or a project, you're not doing too interactive, right? So what you have to do, for example, to write a code, right? You have to write a code, right? So for example, import math, whatever math, okay. You could say, for example, x equals whatever, let's take a for loop for I in range 1 to 5, and the function range 1 to 5, that means from 1 to 4. Okay, so it's one less, okay, 1 to 4. Okay, and we have to have a colon in here, and you have to have indentation. I'm not sure if you can see, can you see?
Yes.
There's indentation here. Okay, that's, okay. So for example, print, okay. Print what? Print, for example, sign, let's say I, okay, and like that, all right? So I'm printing like the sign for the value file, so it's gonna loop, right? So all I have to do is file, save, I have to save it, okay? Let me save it in documents, that's fine. And let me call it test2, and always I have to give it extension.py, okay? Test2 saved, all right? And then I could hit F5 or just run module here. So it gave you an error. What is the error in here?
Sign is not fine.
So sign it, so I'm not sure how is sign, is it sign with E? I'm not sure. So the function, so let's try it. Save. Anyway, so there's a problem with the name of the function, okay? But let's try the other. So, I mean, let's do something different. Let's just print I for now. Okay, let's print I for now, okay? Just to show you how to run save and then run, okay? So in here, as you see in here, it's printed the result, right? So you could write a code, you could write things interactive, all right? And you know, it's a very nice idle. The only problem is it does not give you a lot of suggestions. So for example, you know, if you import a library, it could give you like, let's try the other application that we're gonna use in this class, which is Visual Studio, all right? So this is cool. This is, I think, cool, right? So all you have to write the code and you make sure you save it and you run it. Also, you could also do some debug, very simple debugging, okay? And usually the errors given in here is not very clear errors or not like very useful errors, so you have to, anyways, so let's try Visual Studio, and I gave you the instructions how to install Visual Studio, okay? I think Shashank posted them in the page. So very simple. Once you launch it, after you install it, okay, you make sure you installed all the Python stuff. Okay, so what you do, you go File and New, and always try to create a project. Okay, so New Project. All right, and we're gonna create a Python project, right? Python project. You see in here there is also some, you know, other options, you know, for machine learning with Windows IoT Core. Maybe we'll try them later, but Python. And we're gonna create Python applications. You select the Python application, and then you have to give it a name for your application. So for example, you could give it a name what? So like test again, all right? You don't have to do anything else. And then you have to okay it, all right? Okay, there's other project with this name, interesting. So what we call it, okay, no test. It's good, no test, okay? So this will create a project for you. Takes a few seconds, will be created. Alright, so it will create the main file for you with the name of the application, so no test. So in here, for example, you could start, so the beauty about the advanced IDE, like PyCharm and this one, that always you could do what? It give you suggestions, right? It will give you a good suggestions to, okay, so for example, if I say import, where is it? Okay, import, you see, import. All right, so all right, so import, all right, So you import, then import. It will give you the list of the libraries and packages available. All right. So if I need to do math, for example, math, there is math, there is C math. Okay, you select it. Okay, enter. Okay, or you could do, for example, from, like we did before, from math, import. Okay, it gives you, okay, the list. So we're looking for sign, right? Sign, okay, it's there. All right, so x, let me try it, x equals sign, so let's make 300, it's in radians, okay, sign radians, okay, okay, print x, okay. So this is a code, you could run it from here, or you could hit F5. So it gave you the result, right? Gave you the result. All right, it gives you a nice interface also for the output in here, okay? It gives you, if there is an error, nice explanation for the errors if you need to use them, right? So it's much more advanced, than the Kindle, but you see it's a little bit slower, all right? And usually when you try to create a project, what you're gonna add? Classes, right? So usually any project, I mean, nowadays most of our projects are object-oriented programming, right? It's not structured programs, right? So you're gonna create classes, right? So multiple classes, 2 or 3 classes. So it's good usually to keep each file has a different class, right? You add a class, right? So what you do, for example, here, if you need to add a class, what you do is you in here and add new item, and you're gonna add Python class. You give it a name. I'll keep it class 1 right now, but you could change it. You could change the name, add, and it will create a new file for you, and even give you a snippet, okay, how the class is written and all of that. Okay. All right. So it's much more easier to use and to debug and all of that. So it will help you a lot. All right. So we're talking about indentation. So let's take a for loop. For okay, student n. Okay, let's have a range. So male. Sorry, I did not mean anything bad. Lowercase, but it's easier for me. So male. Okay, and look at when you do comma. And you would like you have like code, it will give you 2 codes automatically. It knows what you need to do, so it will help you to reduce the amount of the errors, right? So in here, for example, third person. Who's the third person? Okay, we could have a 4th person. Okay, Umar, for example. Right? So for and what we have to have at the end? Colon. Don't forget the colon. Most of the statements have a colon, and give you the indentation right away. So for example, we say print, okay, name of the student is colon. Let's have a comma, and then we have student. Okay, student. Do you think it will work? So print name of the student is, and the student. So it's gonna read it from the from here. So let's try it. All right. So name of the student and printed the names. Loop it through it. Okay. All right. Simple. Simple. Just you need to. Nothing new in here is the new syntax, a little bit different than the language we know, C, C++. Personally, until now, I enjoy how C# or C++ write before that, because I've been doing that for so many years, right, before this. But once you get used to this, it's really fun. Okay, and you could make sure that you have multiple classes. It make it easier to debug, and then you combine the project. Any questions? Okay, maybe I'll ask Shashank next time to give a demo for Bishar. Anybody use Bishar?
Intelligent.
Huh?
Similar to that, intelligent.
Okay, all right. So there is IDs, a lot of IDs, available that you could use. Should be easy to learn. So let's continue in here in this one. Anyways, so when you talk about the statement, is the smallest unit code that you could write, right? And you could execute. So for example, if I say, for example, in here, x, okay, plus 1, is this a statement? Can you execute this line? No. Okay, you cannot. But if I say x equals x plus 1, this is a statement because it's a full line, executable line. Like a print. Is the print, when I say print, okay, here, is this a statement? Yes, because I can execute it. So statement, it has to be a full line that need to be executed. Why I'm saying that? Because Python is not a compiler. Okay, it's an interpreter. Okay, it's interpreter. And interpreter it's different than compiler. So in C++, for example, when you need to run a program, what you have to do? You have to compile the whole program, and it has to have how many errors? 0. If you have a single error in C++ or C or Java, okay, it will not run. It has to have zero error compilation. And then from that we'll create the object file, and from the object we'll create the executable, right? Then you could run it, right? Interpreters is like shell programming. It will execute line by line. So even if you have a statement or a line that has a mistake, it will not prevent continuation of the execution. All right? Right? So that's the difference between interpreter and so it's an interpreter, right? So when you talk about the values and data, the values and the data, okay, the values and the data, okay. So you know what's the values, okay. The values could be integer, could be a complex, could be a float, could be decimal. The nice thing about the Python is you don't have to declare the type of the variable. There's no declaration of type. It's like the Python will know it by itself. So we don't say in it x. We don't. We just use it. We define it x equals 2. Then the Python will know, the compiler will know it's what? Integer. So if I type, for example, x equals 0.2, so it will know it's what? Float. If I say x, for example, equals h, it will know it's
Character.
there's no character, there is string. Okay, there's no string, so it will know it's a string. All right. So there is no declaration for the type. Actually, you could use the type. You could use the type. The type function. So for example, print, okay, type of 5, for example. Okay, what's the type of 5? Okay, that's what gives it's a class integer, right? All right. So, and let's say, for example, I don't know how to clear the screen. Start show, maybe no. I need to clean it. Anyways, I got the claw. Anyways, okay. Can you see bottom there? Yeah, maybe it's nicer when it's down there because it's too high. Anyways, so for example, if I say x equals 2, so what is x? Integer, right? So listen. Okay, so if we say, for example, print type of x. okay? So it gives you is integer. In the same program, in the same place, I say x now equals h. So if I do this again in here, all I have to put and hit enter, it will give it back in here. It's a string. Alright? This is different than the previous languages. We know that usually that when you declare a variable, it has to maintain the same type all the program. No, it's different. So this will make it much more easier for new programmers, or let me put it this way: it's a less detail that you have to worry about, right? The compiler will take care of it for you. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So there is a complex numbers, but for that you have to include C math, complex math, and you have to know what you to include. Variables, all of us know what's variables. The most important thing in the variables that you need to know, okay, it's what? It's dynamically, okay, typed. Okay, the type, or it's not type. Type, that means it's allocated or given the type after it's given a value. So x equals 2 becomes an integer. X equals colon hello, it becomes a string, and so on and so forth. Okay, so variables are created, or means defined and initialized in the same statement. You could create them and initialize them in the same statement. All right. If a variable is not defined, means assign the value. So if you type, for example, x, right, x, it will give you an error because it's not assigned. Okay, it's not defined. So it will give you error that it's not, it's not a name is not defined. All right. So variable name can be created, okay, with underscore, with capitals or smalls, like any other programming language. All right. Usually, the community of Python, they prefer to write the names like that with underscore. So, for example, Windows underscore size. Myself, I don't like this way. Don't follow me. Follow the recommendation. I like to have a small. Then I use capital for every single word, capital letter. Okay, that's how I prefer. The reason for that, I'm slow typer. Okay, I'm not very good in typing, and anything that needs two hands, shift and underscore. Okay, so it's a lot of work for me. So it's up to you. Use whatever you like to do, but try to be consistent. In your writing code. All right. Operators, all of us know what's operators. So you have the addition. So in here, for example, you have the addition. You have the multiplication, division, power. Okay, and and there is modulos, all of that. Okay, so I don't think I need. And this is the power, by the way. I'm not sure if you can see 5 to the power 2. All right. All right, so there is this is divided normally, and this is the division, and it will give you the floor number. So for example, if you divide 10, as you see in here, divide 10 by 4, it will give you 2.5, but if you divide 10 by 4 with the 2, so you say 10 by 4, if you say 10 by 4, it will give you the 4 number, which is not 2.5, it will give you the floor, which is 2. The floor. So I did not see this operator in Java, is it? Did anybody see it? C++, I did not. All right. Of course, the AND the OR and the XOR and the NOT operations. Okay, this is the power, this is the bitwise XOR, the AND, OR. All of these you could use. Bitwise operator, I'm gonna go fast because I think you know most of this stuff, all right? In case you don't know, all you have to do, again, open the shell, try it out, okay? So you have the shift left, right, left, the AND, the OR, the negation, and the XOR, all right? This bitwise operation. And you know what's bitwise operation? It works in the binary level. Any questions? Please ask, stop me at any time if I go fast, all right? So this is example of the input. So for example, if you need to read the data, okay, so if you need to read, let's go here. Okay, so we know the input. So the input, for example, if you say input, where am I? Yeah. Okay, input. Okay. Okay. Enter your age. Okay. So we have to put this, right? Enter your age. So this is, you could save it in a variable called age, for example. Age equals, okay? And then, okay, okay. You could write, for example, print, okay. Not sure if it's gonna work because this separation, or we could do it like this: string, convert it to string, the age convert it to string. Okay, and we could delete this. We put the plus in here, and we could remove this and put the plus in here. How is that? So, well, okay, let's try it. So first thing we have to save it. All right, and then we could go and run it. So enter, you see it in here. Enter, this is coming from the previous code, forget about it. Enter your age, so I'll put like 80. Okay, or 20. Okay, so this would give you an error print. Okay,
Lowercase.
huh?
The P should be lowercase.
I can't hear you.
For print, that small p too small.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. So what is your age? Wow, your age is 20, you are very old, whatever. Okay, so you read to the input and okay. All right, so going back here. All right, so expression is a combination of values and variables, okay, and operators. A value, okay, like 17, x plus 17, this is an expression, but it's not a statement. It's not a full statement. I don't have to talk about the order of operations, you know that from high school, but in case you're interested to know again, parentheses have higher priority than, you know, multiplication, division, and then addition, subtraction, right? I don't have to go over that, right? Assignments, reassignment, and updating variables. So assignments is like normal, except I'm sure you do not see that in C++ or Java. So you could have multiple assignments in one sentence. So you're assigning a 3 to Z to Y to X in one sentence. Okay, that's kind of new. Updating variables is exactly like what we have in other languages. So for example, as I told you, for example, A equals A plus 1. In math, that's wrong. But in programming, that's good. Okay? And you're updating that variable, and you could have a plus equal whatever, you know, for updating the variables. Strings. Strings is very strong thing in Python, and there's so many functions and capabilities that you could do with Python in this program in Python. You need to check one of the tutorials, and you'll see a lot of things you could do with it. Right? You could add strings. You could anything. I mean anything you could name it. It's available as a function for you. Okay. So how you create a string? By having a single quote like in here, or a double quote, or triple quotes. So in the triple quote, it will preserve the multiple lines. It will preserve the multiple lines. Single quote, double quote, or triple quotes. Comments. All right. Comments is a very important thing. So you could create one-line comment, of course, like you have in here with the hash function. I'm sure you have used that many times. Also, with triple quotes, you could create them and create like the comments. By the way, comments is a very important for me in your homework. So usually, when I grade the homework, I give 3 points for correct execution, 1 point for comments, proper comments. That's a very important. You cannot read a code without proper comments. All right, you cannot read a code without a proper naming system. So most of us, when they get lazy, like what I'm doing in here, I'm trying things X, Y, Z. What does it mean? Nothing. All right. So you have to have like right and proper way of naming your functions, naming your, for example, your classes, your variables, that allow you later when you read your code, you understand it. All right. Sometimes when you write a very long code, spend all night. By the end of the night, you forget what's your name convention at the beginning. All right, so it's very important. So I really pay attention a lot for the comments. It's a good habit, always. Make it part of your blood system, that when you write code, you have enough details and enough comments, and it makes sense. Some people, when they write the comments, you feel they are writing a story. When you go give it the code to anybody, you feel like you can go through it very nicely and understand to the end. All right. By the way, this is a talent. You find it in some of the books writers. When they write a code and explain it, you don't have difficulty. You know how to explain things. They know, they feel, they sense where possibility for difficulty for readers to get confused. Explain it nicely. And the areas where it's very common to understand, it's easy to understand, they make it light. So it's a talent also. That's why some of us like this book more than the other book, because of the way it's written. Same thing with the code, right? Remember that in the future, what we do, we are sharing the work. Console input and output. Console input and output. So the screen, the input, you read it through the enter, the input statement. We have seen that, all right? And the most important thing is, which always causes me troubles when I write in the Python, is the block structure. You have to have indentation, all right? They recommend to have 4 spaces for indentation. You could use tab. Okay, I use tab myself. Whatever. So you have to have proper indentation in your code, and will cause you a lot of problems. Not a lot of languages use indentation, but in here you have to use it. So I don't have to explain it in here. I mean, I already explained it in the code. So for this part, which I will start, I stopped here in the previous class this morning. I will stop as will here, and we'll start next lecture talking about functions, flow control, logical conditions, loops, and iterations. We'll start from the next lecture. Any question? All right, thank you.